And welcome into the Thursday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Mark here with you on this Thursday morning. Hope everybody's off to a fabulous start to their day. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Oh, and the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. What's going on?
Well, I know people really interested in this. The Detroit Tigers got another big win yesterday, so kudos to them. Of course, my grandma and mom may be hit with a Category 4 here soon. So
yeah, there's that.
And my grandma's had to go to a lot of shelters and things like that. You live in Florida long enough, you have to deal with that stuff. But my God, do not knock out the cable so she can't watch the Tigers.
No.
That's all I'm saying. I'm warning you, Hurricane. What the heck is this? Helene?
Helene? Yeah.
They call it Helene?
I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
I'm warning you. Do not take the Detroit Tigers away from my grandma.
Be a hurricane in and of its own right over there if you do that. Stronger than Paul Kuharski.
That's right. Yes, exactly. So we're about to get some weather here. I've heard some high school teams, I guess, a couple at least, have changed to tonight for their Friday game.
Yes.
So
a lot of rain coming.
Yeah, a lot of rain coming. Be ready.
Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Doing well. Can't complain. Strong cup of coffee as well. I was going to say PK could maybe dumb down that hurricane down there, maybe make some things better, but I don't think that's possible.
It's funny because we just saw Jim Cantori on the Weather Channel, which if you've watched the Weather Channel long enough, you know that, like, if Jim Cantori shows up, like Jim Cantori's shown up here a couple of times when there's been, like, weather systems rolling through that are supposed to, have some spin-up tornadoes and all that. And anytime Jim Cantori shows up somewhere, probably not good news for you where you are. I did think about, like, can you imagine Kuharski, like, reporting on a hurricane? It's like, hey, guys, the wind's blowing hard down here. It's like, all right. Thank you, Paul.
Oh, God. That actually
Kuharski, the weatherman.
I would actually, I might even pay for a subscription service just to, like, have him do that.
I think I might too.
We just send him around town like Kermit the Frog, on Sesame Street, with his little hat.
It's raining. It's awful out here. So yours is just so much better than mine. I should leave the Kuharski impressions to you.
Sometimes, but I think that we should get all of Nashville whenever they see Kuharski. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Just like annoy the hell out of him on a daily basis. But we have a contest.
In all
Kuharski contest.
Our prayers are with the people of Florida dealing with this thing. Anytime you've got a potentially major hurricane, that is not good. So we'll keep an eye on that. And obviously some of that weather going to come up here throughout the weekend as well. So just make sure you're cognizant and aware of all that. We got a lot to get to on the program today. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will join us at 8 o'clock for his weekly visit. We'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. And also a pretty wild story in college football out of UNLV that we'll get to at 7 o'clock that in some ways could be the launching pad of a lot of things that could happen in college sports. We'll get into that coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. We begin on the Tennessee Titans. They're back at work preparing for the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football coming up. Brian Callahan addressing the media yesterday. Will Levis addressing the media yesterday as well. And it got me thinking because I heard the discussion yesterday in Jared versus Joe. And, Jared was talking about being worried about some of the things that he's seen from Callahan to this point. And I guess my question, my thought process in this whole thing is, like, when is it fair to actually start evaluating Brian Callahan? And I'm not talking about, like, job performance in terms of, like, firing him or anything like that. I'm talking about, we're 3 games in. I'm not sure that with a 3-game sample size, we've really learned anything of substance about Brian Callahan in terms of the type of head coach that he's going to be. I don't know that we've learned anything about the type of head coach he's going to be. I don't know that we've learned specifically about the type of play caller that he's going to be. Like, I think there's still a ton more information to gather here. So, like, is there a point in year 1? Do you need to see it for a couple of years? Like, when do you start to really kind of hone in on Brian Callahan, the type of head coach he is, the type of play caller he is, and when is it fair to start having some some takeaways from that as to what it actually means for him moving forward.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to immediately, as soon as games start, it starts. It's just, it's just you got to be careful about overreacting either way. So let's go back to Vrabel's first season. His second game, of course, was at Houston, and it was like I remember
the greatest coach game of all time.
Yeah, I mean, John McClain is in that press box. He's like, I think that's the greatest game I've ever seen coached. I just did a terrible John McClain, but I was like, wow, man, you've been covering the NFL since like I was in diapers, so I'm gonna put some stock into that, but. Then that season they got on a heater, and then they go play awful Buffalo and awful Josh Allen, by the way. Awful. He was awful. I'd like to remind everybody of that.
Yes.
And lost like 13-12. That started kind of a pattern with Vrabel, right? Which was through his tenure. I mean, it was more good than bad. He won a lot more than he lost, but also they'd have these amazing wins you don't anticipate, and then they'd have these head-scratching losses. It's kind of the NFL too, but I think it was still a little bit of a Vrabel thing there. It
happened frequently.
Like the Vrabel special could be used both ways. Like they were definitely, I mean, they were prone to, I think, being upset, and they were also consistently overperforming when people counted them out, right?
Yep.
Like he loved that stuff. So, I mean, we may be seeing some things right now that I mean, obviously, I don't know. What are we seeing right now that could be like consistent? I actually think his play calling's been okay. I mean, I think it's been better. Obviously, they've been scoring points in the first half. Like the first drive against the Packers the other day, that script, I thought that was a really good drive. It looked. I mean, think about the first half against the Bears. I was like, man, this guy's got a feel for it. It wasn't just that it was all focused on Caleb Williams. But remember, they were up 17-0. And those drives were, I thought, really nice mix of run, pass, and really kept them off bounds. And a good defense. That's a good defense on the road. So I think, but then you're like, okay, but then what? Again, just carrying over from previous coaching, but like can't score the second half, So I mean, look, it's fair if they have a terrible year this year and they keep making critical mistakes. And they're inconsistent, because I think you'd have to say that about the defense now, then that's not good. I mean, I think right now is a great test of him in terms of keeping a locker room together and just finding solutions. I think the way he's describing it, like, watching his presser the other day, because I don't go to him anymore. I mean, I think the way he talks it through totally makes sense.
Bless you.
Excuse me. But, don't worry. I don't think I'm going to get you guys sick. I think we're all right. But can you do it? I mean, like when he talks through things, again, I very much appreciate how forthcoming he is. I do think that there's something to that, and being comfortable with like what you do. I've always believed, like, and this is in college, in the NFL, you have set rules, but like college, I think like coaches who kind of open things up, it's like, because they know that they don't have anything to hide. Yep. And like they're comfortable with how they do things. I think the openness he has speaks to some level of confidence and stuff. But you got to get results, and he obviously. I mean, the problems come up real fast when you start losing. We can talk about the locker room and Levis. You talk about Levis himself, because that's still what it's about, right? I mean, he's the quarterback guy, so
exactly.
Fix the quarterback, and a lot of things. And then it's like the defense is kind of. I mean, this is the setup with a lot of teams now. It's really like the defense is kind of head coached by the DC, and it's kind of, I mean, he talks about it, but still, right? Doesn't it? Even when he talks about defense, sometimes like there's a detachment, right? That isn't like that with all the coaches, but with the play calling QB head coach, the defense is kind of, that's
kind of have to be that way.
Yeah. Right. So, but I mean, to go back to your original question, hey, there's 17 evaluations this year that all of us can partake in.
I got a texter that says, doesn't having early success mean the game plan throughout the week is good? He just needs to work on in-game adjustments, because usually the first 2 or 3 drives are already set. Is that correct? From an unnamed texter on the text line. More or less, like certainly the first drive is scripted, right? We talk about.
I mean,
that.
So a lot of coaches have a certain number of plays,
right.
So they may not get to you may go 3 and out, and you keep going with the script.
Keep going with the script at that point, and sometimes you got a script, and it becomes pretty obvious quickly into a game that you need to abandon the script and start doing other things.
Right.
Like it just kind of depends on the circumstances and depend on the game. But yeah, like I think the first drive the other day is a great example, right? Like that's, I think, pretty clearly a scripted drive for the Titans, and it went very well. Like it's, I mean, what it is you look at your opponent, you look at the things you do well, and you try to match that up on with what you see on film as to what you think is best going to work, and then the defense adjusts to what you're doing, and you got to counter adjust to what they're doing, and it becomes a game of chess after that. But yeah, like I think there have been some encouraging things with the way that they've started some of these games that are good. Now, then the question becomes, all right, so at what point is the offense as a whole going to be able to carry some of this over into the second half? We've talked about the second half numbers with this team dating back to 2 years ago. Like somebody's got to do something to get something figured out in the second half. That's all I'm saying offensively. They scored a touchdown in the second half the other day on offense, and I was like, oh, hey, look at there.
I mean, so I guess you could look at that and say, hey, okay, there's progress
Yeah.
from the last half. But yeah, it's no, and for sure. I mean, adjustments are a huge part of it. And again, it's whatever. Halftime adjustments. It's got to be constant adjustments. So you do have a few more minutes at halftime, but like you have to adjust. That's every series you're looking at. Oh, look at what they did with this coverage. Look what they did with this pressure. You know. And then on the other side, they're looking at route combinations, and because there's only so many things you can do in a game. Like
Right.
You have a game plan, and then of course you have counters off your plays and things like that. But yeah, I mean, so like the QB and the play calling stuff is mainly what we're looking at. But if you're the head coach, there's also this keeping the whole locker room together. And when you take over a job like this, usually it's been bad, and it was not as bad as some places, but they had 2 straight losing seasons. And so you also have this negativity around the town usually that can come up real fast, and it has.
It has. Jared from Spring Hill says, to me, Callahan is inconsistent calling plays on offense. No idea of what an identity he's trying to create on offense. And soft. This from Jared from Spring Hill on the text line. Soft. I don't really know what that even means in relation to Brian Callahan. The play calling is soft?
Okay. Well, I would argue. Well, I guess you know what, Jared? I will say they should have run the ball more last game. So I guess if that's what we're talking about, then I suppose you could call it soft. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever heard that before. You soft play caller, you.
Is he just talking about like him in general? Because there is a nice clip of him yelling, what the F are you doing at the quarterback, which I thoroughly enjoyed. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan, when is it fair to start to evaluate him? What have you made of what you've seen from Callahan to this point? We'll take your thoughts on all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on Brian Callahan and the Titans. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter says, everybody's starting to turn into Stillman about Callahan. I don't even know what that means. I'm just throwing the question out there. Like, when do you start to have some takeaways from the job that he's doing? It's only 3 games.
Are we not allowed to talk about the coach? What is his take on him? I don't even.
I don't know. I don't think that there's I don't think even Stilly's had any grand sweeping takeaways.
No. Okay.
I don't think
he's withholding judgment on something.
I don't know about that either.
Okay. I just haven't. Yeah, I haven't really.
If he withholds judgment, he might spontaneously combust.
That's true. It's like, get it out. Better out than in. Just get it out, buddy.
One texter says it's hard to win any games with turnovers and getting the quarterback sacked 8 times in a game. I would agree with that. And then you compound that with not forcing any turnovers as well.
Yeah,
we need to figure out. You brought it up during the break. What is the record for fewest amount of turnovers forced in a season? I mean, we're only 3 games in, so there's still plenty of time.
But still, it's a hell of a pace.
Yes, it is. Your pace is 0. So, is there a time when that can change for the Tennessee Titans? Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in, David. David, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. I think you made a great point a minute ago that, to me, sums up everything. We're coming off a couple bad seasons. We've had major turnovers in coaching, new young quarterback, play caller. We have tons of gaps in the roster. And I think we're somewhat overanalyzing this thing, which is easy to do, but if the expectation is we're going to come in and we're going to be Super Bowl bound, that's just not going to happen. So just the point there is, I think we got to understand this is a rebuilding year. We're not going to be like a well-oiled machine. We're this rebuilt V6 that we got to try to get started and then tuned up. So anyway, that's my comment. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good day.
Thanks for the call, David. Hey, look, I think that's well reasoned. Now, I guess my counterpoint to that would be this. I 100% agree. If you're expecting the Titans to come out there and compete for a Super Bowl this year, you're probably not living in reality. I don't think it's unfair to expect them to be not dog water like they've been the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
there's a middle ground there.
Sure. Yeah, there's some mistakes on both sides of the ball now.
Yes.
After the last game, that you're just like, man, that's got to be better. You can't have that. By the way, GuinnessWorldRecords.com.
Okay.
New Orleans Saints, fewest turnovers forced, 2019, 8.
8.
They forced 8 in an entire season.
Jeez, I feel like it should be lower than that,
but I mean,
8's still
you're
not a lot.
I mean, that's you're gonna have 5 rando fumbles that you fall into your arms, right?
I was about to say you might get 3 per year that somebody just drops the ball. It's on the ground,
right? You're gonna have a handful of just absolute gimmies every year. I mean, half a turnover a game force is pretty. It's pretty low.
It's pretty low,
but it is not as low as the Titans' pace right now.
It is not. So there's some work to do here. They'd have to really struggle to get fewer than 8 at the end of the year.
Yeah,
you would think with the personnel that they've got on the defensive side of the ball, that you could fall into a few more turnovers than that.
Yeah, obviously they can make mistakes, and they did last game, but they have a lot of guys who are aggressive. Their linebackers are fast, come downhill. Arden Key here and there. Arden Key had a strip sack first game last year. Remember that?
He did.
Speaking of the New Orleans Saints.
Yes, he did. And then I think that was probably all she wrote for Arden Key after that.
It went downhill a little bit from there.
Glad you brought him up.
Yeah, he's on the team.
Forgot he was playing. Jared from Spring Hill, really not happy this morning. Says, that guy's crazy. Overanalyzing. Yes, the owner set high expectations at the start of the year when she fired Vrabel. Idiots. This from Jared from Spring Hill.
Jeez, take it easy.
He's fired up this morning.
Yeah. Well, look, I will say the owner, I don't know that she set high expectations, but she did list out all the reasons for excitement.
She did.
And I'm certain that she wants better than this. I know, Callahan got asked about the phone call. So we're going to get the weekly questions about Callahan's phone call with Amy now.
Did not provide a transcript.
No, just, talked in generalities, as I would hope he would. Yeah, I would expect him to. But, Amy did. Of course. I mean, again, the expectations were not this. but I think also everybody knew that it was going to be a couple year process to get, and that's if everything breaks well for you. If everything were to break well for the Titans this year, to me, it's still not a Super Bowl team.
No, but the hope is that there's enough of a step taken by the quarterback where then you start to look ahead and see where that path could become reality.
Well, then you have, it's like, okay, and he's still on the rookie deal, the rookie second round deal, by the way.
Exactly.
So how good could it be next year? So right now, that's not really what people are talking about.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in James. James, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Just comment on the previous caller's call about it being a rebuild. I think a lot of the frustration from the fans comes from the games that we could have been winning this season, but just simple mistakes on both sides of the ball and boneheaded plays. I think that's really what the frustration is about. And I understand it's a new team and new coaches, but that games like that, when you have it in your grasp and you lose it, I think that's the most frustrating part for the fans.
Yep.
I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, James. I think certainly, without a doubt, you can make an argument that the Titans should be 1-2 rather than 0-3. You could make an argument for 2-1. Like, how does the game against New York play out if Levis doesn't, roll the ball on the ground? I have no idea. Like, they could have still lost that game. It didn't directly lead to a touchdown like the game against Chicago did. There's no doubt. Like, they should have won the Chicago game and the quarterback lost it along with the block punt. They had another block punt in game 2. You can make the argument that the Jets game was right there for you as well. Like, the Packers game kind of is what it is at this point. But you can make the argument they should be 2-1 instead they're 0-3.
Yeah. Ridiculous mistakes that shouldn't happen in NFL games, 2 in each of the first 2 games. So, I think definitely they would be the way they played. Other than that, that's football that should win the game. For sure, game 1, and I think likely game 2. By the way, so Miracle Flip is the first one. The second one I've officially christened Holy Bleep Roller. Okay,
I like it.
For people who don't know, Kenny Stabler had the famous Holy Roller where he fumbled into the end zone, but he actually was seriously like bowling the ball to a teammate, and they allowed that to stand as a touchdown to beat the Chargers in the playoffs. So this is the Holy Bleep Roller.
My question for you is, like, how many of these are you going to have the opportunity to name?
I don't know.
By season's end.
I didn't have anything last game.
You didn't.
I mean, I don't, just your garden variety pick 6 doesn't get a nickname. So 2 for 3.
Ed on the text line. It's an interesting question. Question for Robby. Been out on Levis and understandable, but how many times over a 2-year period were you out on Love?
Good question.
And the question is, or the answer is, a few different times I was out on Love.
You didn't see him
I didn't
much, though.
see him a whole
That's
lot.
The thing.
But I will say about halfway through last year, I don't know that I was totally out on him, but my thought process was basically, I don't know if this guy's very good. And then all of a sudden he was pretty good.
Yeah.
So it can change quickly.
In your mind. Okay. So, yeah, right. So you saw that. I did too. I think for me, like it was especially like Thanksgiving where, it's the only game on and my family's forced me to watch the freaking Lions. And I'm like, is this guy like the MVP? What are we watching here? Like they have no chance against this guy. And then it just carried on other than the Giants game.
Yeah.
So you've seen that. You saw how it played on a weekly basis. Is it possible that something like that could happen with Will Levis?
Sure. It's possible. Now, I mean, the one thing I'll say about Love is he would make 2 or 3 throws every game where you're just like, wow. Even when he wasn't going well.
Yeah.
Like he would make 2 or 3 throws every game where you're just like, I'm not sure how many people can do that. And like if you watch the guy play, I mean, it makes a lot of plays like that. Does Levis do that? He's done some. Like, I mean, I think back to the Atlanta game, right? Like the where he's rolling out to the right and he comes back across his body. It's a heck of a play. Like, it's a great throw. I don't know that I would say that he does that every game and does it 2 or 3 times a game. But certainly there's a baseline of ability there, which is why they're going with him, by the way, and why they're trying to exhaust every possible option here. Just because he does have that baseline of ability where he has the potential to be good. So is it possible? Yeah. Is it likely? Probably not. But is it possible? Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I love more eye-popping stuff. But, yeah, look, it's It's just I know right now it doesn't look great, and it's not just the big mistakes. It just the whole thing doesn't look great. But this is why, to me, you just have to commit to the games and see where it goes. It does need to, I think, take some positive steps soon.
Yes, no doubt about that. Rob on the text line, quote, "There have been times I've been out on love, but love has never been out on me." I think we need a country song of that, Robbie. We'd probably make that happen.
Time's been out on love.
Jordan,
Love's never
love.
been out on me.
The more we get Rexrode singing on the program, the better off we'll all be. Speaking of Rexrode, an interesting trade proposal, is that the right word? About the Titans
Yeah, it's
that
not
we'll
my
get to
fault. It's not
coming
my
up
fault.
next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans, 615-737-1025. We'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. So go ahead and send in your best things and your worst things in the world of sports. Joe Rexrode, tell us the exercise that you participated in. Do we have a legitimate Titans trade proposal that we've come up with on theathletic.com?
Yep, yet another shameless plug from
Hey, what happened? You cut her off. So this is what happens sometimes. And so Joseph Person, who covers the Panthers for us, and
Is a real person.
Joseph Person is a real person. He's covered that. He's kind of ugly, though.
Wow. Jeez.
Please don't do that.
Joe Person.
I did not say that about Joe Person.
Catches some strays.
Jeez.
Friend of the show.
Good Lord. No, Person's awesome, and he's covered them for a long time. So, sometimes something happens, and at The Athletic, it's like, hey, here's an idea for a story. So the idea was on their side. His editor, Ken Bradley. He used to be my editor, my first editor at The Athletic. And it was like, okay, Joe Person is going to do trade proposals. He put it out to staff. If any of you have, want to throw a trade proposal, and actually Ken reached out to me. He's like, what do you think? Anything? I'm like, hey, I'll take a run at it. So this was not my idea, okay? So I'm asked to come up with a proposal. So I came up with a proposal because I got hammered on Twitter like you. I'm trying to find some of these comments. One person was like, oh, good, you smoke crack. Congratulations. And it's like, I hate, I refuse to believe, Trey Wynn, who's a good supporter of the show, says, I refuse to believe Joe wrote something that's dumb. Well, again, this was an exercise that I took part in. And so this is my proposal was, okay, well, if we're talking about trading for Bryce Young, because other teams are, writers of other teams threw out like draft picks, right? I was like, okay, well, how about Will Levis, Bryce Young? Will Levis, you go to Carolina, big, strong guy. You and the Red Rifle can arm wrestle and play quarterback over there. And then Carolina, people don't have to complain about how little Bryce Young is and everything.
That's
and
true.
You can come here for Kuharski too. Oh, I'm taller than you. Come here. Come do an interview. But my proposal was straight up because, of course, the Titans are taking out a lot of money by doing this trade. There's dead money for the Panthers, but it's a change in the payroll.
Sure.
And then they have 2 5th-round picks. I said, throw me a 5th too. They have a 5th from the Giants. So my proposal was straight up, which of course means, first of all, if it were to even materialize in reality, it would mean that the Titans believe in Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And obviously right now, the evidence on Bryce Young is sobering. It's not good. I think there's also some reasons for some of it, but I get it. Like right now, it doesn't look great. And then you get an extra pick out of it, and then you see what he can do in this offense. And then if the Panthers like it, all they have to do is part with a pick, and they sort of, move on. I mean, it seems to me like they are out on him, but I don't know. There's conflicting things about that out there. Person, by the way,
what did the owner have for breakfast this morning? Kind of probably feeds into if they're out on him or not.
Well, exactly, yeah. So I mean, they're out on being reasonable or smart at all ever.
Yes.
So anyway, but Person did decline it, by the way. So right, he looked at 3 trades and said they're going to hang with him. So that'll be interesting. But yes, I was asked to do it, and I did it, and in reality with the Titans, I don't think I'm out there trying to trade Levis unless you were talking about a proven good quarterback, then sure. But I'm trying to hang with Levis and see what he is and give him a lot more opportunities this year and go from there.
The first thing I thought about when you were discussing this yesterday off the air was, can you imagine, Bryce Young, I think clearly is dealing with some confidence issues right now. They've in some ways potentially ruined him in Carolina. Can you imagine the Titans making that trade and then Bryce Young getting here and be like, Bryce, congratulations. Welcome to the Titans. We're really excited to have you here. Now let's go watch film together, and you can see the offensive line in which you're going to be playing behind, and really just have fun with that.
Yeah.
Hope you've been drinking your milk and eating your Wheaties because you're going to need to.
Well, and the thing is, actually, the Carolina line is actually, they did improve it. Like so far, early returns are like they actually did some stuff that, last year was horrible.
Right.
but they so far have been fine. And so, yes, he would be then stepping down to this and back into more of what he had last year. I'm sure he'd be thrilled by that.
Yes, I'm sure that he would. Wes in Clarksville says, but Bryce Young needs a lot of work, and Titans have never seemed to make quarterbacks better. Not to this point.
Titans have never seemed to make quarterbacks. First of all, this – and again, I get it. Like, fan experience is something. I've had the argument with Kaharski about, like, receivers, but, like, the people who would make quarterbacks better have been here a few months.
Right.
Like, the other people before them were different people. Also, right. I mean, did McNair not improve? If we're going to talk about the Titans overall, he improved tremendously.
Significantly.
He went from, like, someone people didn't think should be a starter to the MVP, right?
He did.
Now I know I'm going back.
Tannehill got better here.
Well, Kerry Collins was a huge disappointment as an NFL high pick out of Penn State and probably played his best football here. Tannehill played his best football here.
Yep.
Who else? Anybody else?
The best football that Zach Mettenberger ever played in the NFL took place here.
Same with Vince Young.
Same with Vince.
Same with Jake Locker.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. They have some best you could find.
Same with Marcus. So the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Marcus got better. Then he didn't. And then he started going the other way, I think, after he broke his leg. And that's the thing. It's like, I really do believe that that's a big part of his story, and the injuries are a big part of his story. Not that I think he was going to be great otherwise, but I think it's a big part of his story. And I think with Bryce Young, in all seriousness, whether it's there or somewhere else, I really hope that he isn't ruined by this. I mean, some people will still tell you David Carr could have been a great player in this league, and 76 sacks later, he had no chance.
So just on the record, you do not advocate the Titans to actually make a trade for Bryce Young.
I do not. And again, I was bullish on Young coming out of college. I heard DVD. I'm loving DVD.
Yes.
Vingan's doing a great job on Mike 1. But I heard those guys talking about it yesterday, and D-Mace was making the point about Bryce Young. Like, well, in college, and like some people talked about it. We talk about it all the time with guys coming from like the dominant programs, great, protection and great receivers, all that stuff. And so then you get to the NFL and it's different. I'm like, that's true, but it was also true of CJ Stroud.
Yes.
So the difference to me is more that CJ Stroud comes to a place where they do support him, and a lot of things are better than we realized last year. Receivers were better than we realized. Offensive line was really good protection, whereas Bryce Young had a crappy. And by the way, last week with Brian Flores' defense, CJ Stroud did not look good.
He did not.
So I'm just saying, it's one game, but it's so much about what you do for these quarterbacks, not just what they are.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it is time for the best and worst things in the world of sports. Some of you have already sent in your best and worst. We appreciate that. We'll take more of them on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hey, Robby Stanley here. NFL Week 4 is here, and you can start with a chance for a big win on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're new to FanDuel, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Thursday night football coming up, the Cowboys and the Giants. Giants get the big win last week against the Cleveland Browns. Cowboys now at 1-2, which I'm sure is going over very well down there. I'll take the Cowboys to bounce back tonight on the money line. I'll also take a CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown. That's just me. You can take it any way you want to take it. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob to make every moment more this season. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/Rob. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best things and worst things in sports.
Look, I'm just going to keep hammering my Detroit Tigers. They're the best thing in sports, man. So I got Tigers fever. They got to win. And I'm just excited for Phyllis, Grandma Pratt. Get excited. Again, it's been 10 years, but it's not just been 10 years since it's been the postseason. Like they've been, it's been a very, very bad stretch. So I know some Tigers fans out there are, like to respond to the text line. So let's get excited. Baseball fever in late September, Robby. Catch it.
Should be over with by Labor Day.
All into October. My worst in sports, the throw is a best candidate because Shedeur Sanders is an incredible throw, but like Baylor's, like the different things that conspired to lose that game for Baylor, it really is. In fact, I'll tell you, I'm working on something now on the most confounding, like crazy losses in college football history, like all the things that happened in the last few minutes of a game that's totally over. Truly incredible. And not, everybody will focus on the Hail Mary, which again is Shedeur Sanders drifting left. And I mean, it is, I don't think we'll see a better throw in college football this year, but then everything else, including who might be the best player in college football, Travis Hunter forcing a fumble at the 1 inch line when Baylor's about to go in. But Baylor, I mean, again, John McClain, I mentioned him earlier, best coach game. He had a tweet the other day like, I've been watching Baylor football since 1960. Never come close to this.
Yes.
So Dave Aranda and Baylor, that's my worst in sports.
A couple things on that. Number one, I was rooting heavily when they went to review and stormed the field that the play would show that the guy was in and they'd have to all go back to their seats. I was very much rooting for that.
With a penalty.
And number two on your story, I hope you can find a way to include Tennessee. I believe in 2010 when Derek Dooley decided he would bring the entire sideline over to the goal line. And they got called for too many men on the field against LSU.
The LSU.
There was like 17 people out there. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, good Lord. This is just a defensive armada they've got out here. It's unbelievable.
Oh, that's a good one. He had a few.
He did.
But that's
wow. There's 18 people on the field. How about that?
That's just good coaching right there.
Your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yeah, featuring a couple of quarterbacks this morning. I'll start with my worst, just the blatant obvious. Will Levis looks terrible through 3 weeks, and that's been a huge theme here in Nashville among our program and others as well. But I think what's even funnier is that there are memes week after week so far, and last week did not disappoint whatsoever. Lucas Van Ness went right over Will Levis, and there was a photo floating around of him yet again this week. I think it was after a sack. I don't know when it was during the game. Someone can tell me if they know, but there was a point where he was getting sacked and Lucas Van Ness was just all in his grill. So there was that. That was a meme about Will Levis yet again. So rest in peace to his dignity over the weekend. We'll see if he can improve on that. And then Jaden Daniels just absolutely balling for the Commanders. And here's the thing, not only that, but no team in Super Bowl history or the Super Bowl era has done what the Commanders have done. 2 consecutive games, no turnovers, 0 punts. Wild. Not only that, but I think for him, he is showcasing why he's exactly the perfect franchise quarterback for the Commanders. So he's looking really, really good. And we'll see if he can keep that up this weekend.
He's a good best. He was amazing.
Well, run that high school offense in the NFL and good things happen.
Yeah, I guess so. Boy,
shout out to the Bengals. My best thing in sports, I was going to go Georgia, Alabama this weekend, but there was a really cool thing that happened in the world of hockey this past week. As we all know, the tragedy of Johnny Gaudreau it's been a rough time in the NHL. John Tortorella of the Philadelphia Flyers had Guy Gaudreau come in to help out with Flyers practice. So Guy Gaudreau, which is Johnny's father, came in and helped the Flyers out at practice the other day. And he went on this nice long thing about just how awesome that was to have him in there. So John Tortorella, my best thing in sports, having Guy Gaudreau in to help out with Philadelphia Flyers practice. Obviously,
That's
his
cool.
family kind of lives in that area. So cool to see from Tortorella there. My worst thing in sports, Vanderbilt. It's just, you were right there. You're right there. And it's cool that they were in the game, but you had a couple of chances to win that game, and you just let Eli Drinkwitz off the hook. And when you let Eli Drinkwitz off the hook, it qualifies to me as your worst thing in sports. Love that guy.
Man, Clark Lee was standing on business.
He was.
And then it got away.
Do you know how much money I would have paid Clark Lee had they won that game? To walk up to him in midfield and be like, stand on business, Eli.
Stand on this business.
Yeah. Which Clark Lee, had he done that, would have looked right at him and said it rather than the drive-by that Eli Drinkwitz gave Heupel. But that's neither
He
here
would
nor
have
there.
probably said it nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Eli, we were standing on business.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Have a good one.
That's a tough break, man. Tough break for what I think is actually a pretty solid football team.
They legitimately could be 4-0. Legitimately.
And ranked like
Could be 4-0.
19th in the country.
Now, granted, they won the first game in overtime, so you can make the argument that they could easily be 1-3
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
true.
But they could be 4-0. Trent on the text line. Best in sports, the chaos in the NFL right now. The worst, the refs' flags against the Chiefs, and Tom Brady's commentating. I'm a Tom Brady fan, but please get him out of the booth. This is from Trent on the text line.
Oh, Trent, let me tell you, buddy. You win. If we were giving away a prize, I'd give it to you. It can be the weekly perma. I know some people are like, "Oh, he got way better." I didn't listen to the whole broadcast.
Not been great.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So the penalties against the Chiefs, is he saying, or for the Chiefs?
My guess is he's probably talking penalties that benefit the Chiefs, but I don't know.
You know, I already did a rant about the whole Mahomes stat. I just cannot. Because I just heard it this week on Unsportsmanlike, again referring to like the Bengals were on three. And yes, they had the PI against the Chiefs. That was absolutely the correct call, guys. He blasted him in the back before the ball got there.
It wasn't catchable, but he did.
Well, but I don't think
The ball was 10 feet over his head.
But that's because he got knocked forward.
The ball was 10 feet over his head. Now, granted, I mean,
I'm pulling it up right now.
They're going to call that 100 times out of 100,
Yeah.
but he was not going to catch that ball, which makes it worse.
But, I mean,
that you
it
actually
was
hit
the
him.
right call.
Got a texter that says, I just lost it. There you go. Ben from Cumberland City. My best is the Cleveland Guardians. Statistically and record-wise, one of the top 5 teams all year. Small market team, consistently winning, and top the AL Central with one of the smallest payrolls. A lot of baseball love.
Yeah,
And
screw
the best
them.
and worst things in sports.
Screw
today.
those guys.
Screw those guys. Megan says the worst is the Braves and Mets being postponed due to rain and being moved to a doubleheader while the Braves were hot. They are having to make some adjustments with the hurricane coming in.
Yeah, I saw.
Not a great time of year to have to be making adjustments.
I know. I saw Aria Gerson, Vandy beat writer for Tennessee, in front of the show. It looks like she had tickets to that, and she tweeted like, "So we get some refunds." It's like, oh man, that sucks. I don't know if I know anybody who loves baseball more than her.
Yes. Josh in Kentucky says, best thing, the Aaron Hernandez show on FX. If you haven't seen the first 3 episodes, I highly recommend it. I have seen the preview for that, but I have not seen the actual episode.
Yeah. No, I mean.
Was that American Sports Story? One of those series?
Is that right? Yeah.
I think so.
I've seen a preview and it looks interesting. I still haven't seen the doc on him, which is, I'm so many docs
I have seen that
right now.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Justin from Dixon says, best thing in sports, WNBA playoffs. Better than many of the NBA series.
I watched last night. I considered that for
Got
sure.
a little spicy last night.
No, yeah, it did. It did. Apparently, there's some idiot fans going to some of these games. But Caitlin Clark's season is over. So the next time we see Caitlin Clark play will be next spring in the WNBA. I don't think she's going to do like the 3-on-3 stuff or whatever. But she had a hell of a season. I mean, I think she had like 25, 8, and 6 last night or something like that. And they almost pulled it off and got themselves a home game. But I think they need to add, a good piece. But look, I'm way more engage in the WNBA. I'm going to keep watching the playoffs. So, I mean, I think it's awesome. The numbers have been really good.
Well, she's been playing nonstop basketball since like last October. So
Yeah,
probably
for
good time
sure.
to take a nap a little bit, Caitlin.
Absolutely.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, a wild story out of UNLV in college football that got the attention of everyone in the college football landscape yesterday. We'll get into that. Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Mark here with you on this Thursday morning. We will have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports joining us to begin the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Joe, a pretty wild story coming out of UNLV in the world of college football. So UNLV has actually come up a couple times on our show this week. Emily Proud apparently covering a UNLV game, a couple UNLV games at some point this season. We talked with her about that the other day. They're off to a 3-0 start for the first time in 40 years. And a big part of that has been their quarterback, Matthew Sluka, with the good start to the season for them. And now he's not playing anymore. He's not playing football for UNLV. So the story came out that I guess he put out a statement that he was going to be exercising his redshirt option, I would assume, entering the transfer portal at the end of this season because of, I can't remember the way he phrased it, but basically a disagreement over the NIL part of this. I think he called it representations was the word that he used. Certain representations that were made that were not then followed through on by UNLV and the NIL part of this. Now, David Ubben has come out with a little bit more on this and apparently talked to Matthew Sluka's dad, Bob. And this was the quote that David Ubben got. Quote, essentially, they refused, Barry Odom refused to give us the money. We tried everything. We take payments, anything, and they just kept deferring it. And to this day, we do not know why. Sluka's agent, who was hired, says that he was verbally promised at least $100,000 by an assistant coach before committing to the school this past offseason and has only received $3,000, which was a relocation stipend. And apparently they've not received any more than that. Now, of course, the UNLV donors and people associated with that program are denying this. Bill Paulos, who is a longtime UNLV donor, and I'm reading this story from theathletic.com, quote, if there is a monetary agreement, it comes directly to me. If there's a kid getting $100,000, I'll know about it 100%. And they're saying that the only promises that were made to Sluka was the $3,000 relocation fee. So he's not playing as of the moment. And there is a big time disagreement over the money that he has allegedly been promised. What do you make of this wild story in college football that can only happen in today's modern day of college athletics?
Well, there's more. So obviously this is like, who do you want to believe? I got to say, the dad's coming out and saying, Barry refused to give us the money. They could be lying. The family could be lying. Okay. But like the UNLV statement coming back is stuff like, I love this. The school statement, quote, UNLV athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of the NCAA's pay for play rules, as well as Nevada state law, end quote. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So, meanwhile, Carl Reed Jr. is a college football analyst for 24/7 Sports. He's a former head coach. He tweeted about this, and he said, quote, all financial commitments for UNLV QB Matthew Sluka were completely met. But after wins against Kansas and Houston, Sluka's family hired an agent. They collectively feel his market value has increased per source, end quote. To which Rob Sluka tweets at him, you got the wrong sources and none of that's true. Interesting thing on Carl Reed. Again, he's a former coach. He works for 24/7 Sports, so he's in media. He's also, and I don't know if on Insta this is still the case, but people saw this yesterday. He was listed as the PR contact for the OC of UNLV. So he was listed as the contact for reaching out to the UNLV OC, who was the primary recruiter of Matthew Sluka. So, yeah, that's not great, and it's just a big mess. I mean, to me, obviously it comes down to who's telling the truth, and really, I'd like to hear from Barry Odom. I assume Barry Odom's already had his, weekly presser. This would probably make worthwhile another presser, I think, or you can just wait till after the game and talk about this stuff. But I mean, look, first of all, of all the things on this, one thing that really strikes me, Robby, I mean, the reality of college football is I know it's UNLV, it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten. But, like, if it's true that you gave the kid $3,000 in today's college football, I mean,
what is that?
Give the kid some money. I mean, that's what it is. This is a quarterback, and I watched the whole Kansas game. He was incredible. He's an incredible running quarterback. I don't know that he's not like an NFL quarterback as a passer. He is a ridiculous runner of the football, and they have a chance to do something here. Like somebody at UNLV, if this is true and they didn't promise him, okay, fine, go give him money anyway. I mean, how do you? Like, people know market value. If you have a Tennessee quarterback, and I know it's Tennessee, but he's making $2 million a year, okay, which I think is still pretty close to the top of the market. But, like, the market is, if you're a QB at a top school, you're making 7 figures.
Yeah.
$100K at UNLV, I think that's worthwhile. I think what this tells us is, first of all, there are promises made. Did it happen here for sure? I don't know that for sure. But this happens. Jaden Rashad at Florida, $13 million. And then, that's the first big example. The difference is he wasn't playing and then bailing out in the season. But like $100,000 is like, that's a bargain price for a quarterback for a team that can make the playoffs. And I saw this, I think it was Bud Elliott made a great point on their podcast, and I will try to give proper credit on the name of the podcast. He's 24/7 Sports. Yeah, it is. Like he said on their podcast yesterday, this is millions of dollars to the school and to these coaches and the staff that a playoff appearance would mean.
Yes.
This guy could get you there. You can't give him $100K. I'm sorry, but like, I know people are going to take all these things and I was like, and I am the Porter Rudiger. Well, it's over. Like, you can sit here and complain about instant replay too if you want. I dare you to watch a game without instant replay and be like, oh, well, they totally botched that play. There's nothing we can do about it. That's fine. Let's go back to the old way. It's not going back to the old way. So in this situation, we have a market, and this kid, whether it was promised or not, is getting hosed.
I would agree. Now, I have a lot more sympathy for him if he's getting hosed and if he's not just making this whole thing up. Like,
sure.
There's a lot more sympathy that I've got if they actually promised him $100,000 and they have not followed through that way.
Well, look, if they're lying, if his dad is talking to David Ubben and others, but like you said, Ubben had that quote and is saying on the record, here's my name, Barry Odom refused to give us money.
Yeah.
Hey, if they're lying, I'll tell you what, man, that's some hardcore lying. It's possible.
It is.
No, look, if what Carl Reed, who has apparently a business relationship with the OC of UNLV, if what he claimed is true, that there was nothing promised, everything's fine, and then they just decided to come out, then yeah, to me, it's like, let's play that out as a reality. I have my doubts about that scenario.
I do too.
But let's play that out as a reality. That's where, honestly, I'd go public like they have, but not stop playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, then do that. This is still a huge story, but don't start with, I know it's, start publicly with, by the way, I'm sitting out the rest of the season. Thanks, everybody. If that's how it went. But again, I want to hear from Barry Odom, because this guy's invoking your name, putting his name on it, and telling everybody that you lied. It's pretty bold if it's not true.
If it's not
and
true.
The reality is this collective, the collective and the school, all this stuff, we never formally promised anything. You don't know that an assistant coach didn't say that to him. You do not know that. And you don't know that.
Right. Exactly. And on the field, like, they had a team that has a chance. Now, there's still a long way to go, but has a chance to make the playoff with the playoff setup and the group of 5 team that gets in there. Now, if he's not going to play, you can probably flush that down the toilet at this point. So we're 3 games in. Like I said, there's still a long way to go, but when you've got the opportunity that group of 5 teams now have to get into the dance here, it's a pretty damaging walkaway that they've got going on here with Sluka.
Yeah, they do. It's funny because he was great at Holy Cross. And by the way, he has a degree in Holy Cross. But they do have Haji Malik Williams, who was a star for 5 seasons at Campbell. So they do have another guy who passed for 8,000 yards and 58 touchdowns. So, I mean, maybe they'll be okay, And I don't know. I guess if you're them, maybe they, again, like just take this from the football perspective and how they should look at it. You should not be held up. Like I agree with what I'm a man, I'm 40 said, mullet man.
Gundy?
Like, do the stuff in the offseason, and then, once the season goes, then, I agree. That's how it should be. And this is, again, all of this leads to this is why we need contracts.
Yes.
Also, you'll have way less people moving around and things like that. And once there's a contractual agreement for labor and pay, then, things like this won't happen. This is going to be a weird time in college football.
We talked about this 2 years ago or whenever the Jaden Rashada stuff happened. When that happened, we said on this program, not that we were smarter than anybody else, but it was pretty easy to see coming. That will not be the last time that happens. It will not be the last time that somebody promises a recruit one thing from a financial perspective and does not come through on the back end of it. And what happens when that's the case? Does somebody have the gall to actually not play at that point? Sluka apparently does. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that part of it plays out.
And look, I really hope, Odom comes out and, again, you're going to have to PR the hell out of this,
Yep.
but says, hey, I don't know what all was said, but we've worked it out. And I hope he ends up coming back and playing and they pay him. That's what should happen. That would be the happy ending that I hope this story has.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll continue the discussion.
Not to talk
on
Robert
this
Kraft.
Wild UNLV story coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Premier Six Theater at 810 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro. Whether you're a fan of timeless classics or can't wait for the newest releases, Premier Six Theater has something for everyone. Just head to theGameNashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Our text line temporarily down, which is unfortunate given the crack that Joe Rexrode just made. It's the second time crack's come up on the show today, by the way, in two different contexts.
Yeah, both applied to me. Yeah, and I see some people that were definitely – I totally was like trolling you and ready for your, come on, Joe, college sports is ruined, and then I was going to yell at you, but I can't read them now. So, but you can get on the YouTube chat.
You can get on the YouTube
If you'd
chat.
like to yell at me on the YouTube chat,
we
it's
welcome
there
it.
for you, buddy.
It is, no doubt about it. This thing I'm really interested to see moving forward here. How many more times does this happen? Where, and let's take this for what I think is actually going on here, and we'll see what information continues to come out. But I'm with you. Like it's very difficult for me to believe that Sluka's father would be willing to come out publicly and attach his name to all this and call out specific other people if there wasn't at least some sliver of truth to what they're talking about, and they're not just making things up out of thin air. So, like, how much more will this happen? Because one of my things when this has always been, like, if you're going to promise somebody something, you better be ready to follow through with it, right? Like, you better be ready. If you're promising a certain amount of money in today's era, you better be ready to follow through with it. Because if not, I don't blame Sluka. Like, if he was promised one thing and they've only come up with 3% of it on the other side, I'd do the exact same thing. Like, I don't know how you blame the kid at that point.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it's like this is what it is, right? People are paid for their services now. And it's pay for play. It's college football. So, if I had to guess what happened here, because I don't know, but if I had to guess, it seems like maybe a coach spoke out of turn, and maybe he believed the money would be there, and the money's not there.
Yep.
Like that. And that's the problem is you also just have now, I guess I would hope, I don't know what UNLV's, like booster situation is. I know like Tarkanian had some good buddies back in the day, but yeah, that's going back. But I mean, you would also think maybe like this start would, you could be like, hey, like, let's
come up with something here.
Yeah, let's give this kid's balling right now. We got a chance to do something. So that's what it seems like. It just seems like maybe they just didn't have the money again, unless the stuff that Carl Reed of 24/7 Sports is true, because he went out there and put it out there on Twitter.
And quite frankly, when you get into college sports, especially, that's where, number one, there's 1,000 people covering all these teams. So there's so much journalism going on out there. And I think in college sports specifically, more so than pro sports, there's a lot of glad handing going on with some of these stories.
Well, and there's conflicts of interest.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I mean, pro sports, it is kind of, you still have in pro sports, like you have Schefter sometimes just letting agents write his tweets for him. But like it's collective bargaining and it's contracts and it's like there's disputes over contracts and all that stuff and holdouts. But I mean, yeah, it's all out in the open, and in college sports, it can get real murky and problematic with some relationships and people trying to cape for other people.
No doubt about it. So this is going to be really interesting to see. Number one, is there a solution that's reached here with this, where they realize as they get closer to kickoff, we really need this kid, and let's come up with some money here and let bygones be bygones, and we roll on from there. Or does this actually just stick with he's not playing the rest of the year, he's going to enter the transfer portal, and we'll have one more year of eligibility? And that goes back to the 4-game thing. Like, you can play 4 games and then not burn a year of eligibility there.
And we've seen that. And so, like, for example, USC, Bear Alexander, just, and now with him, there's this whole situation where, and I mean, even like Lincoln Riley's been asked, he's barely playing, all this stuff. So we've seen it before with guys who I think thought, they're buried in the depth chart, not getting what they thought on the field.
Didn't Kelly Bryant do that at Clemson? I think he played 4 games his last year there and then stopped.
I think that's right. Yeah. So if it's like, okay, well, it's not working out for me and the team this year, I'm going to save that year and use that last year somewhere else where I can play more. Okay. I mean, and still some people are going to have a problem with it, right? But like that makes sense. This is one of those. This is really like the first of its kind to me that I know of, where it's like you're playing really well and this happens, and you're the quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's, an interesting thing here would also be, and by the way, their running back also just did this yesterday. It's kind of buried in it, or one of their running backs, and said the same thing, that he was promised stuff and didn't get it.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a communication issue somewhere in the organization. Okay. But what about the team? Because I know, and I hear Big Joe, I'm like, I agree to some extent with Big Joe. This stinks for football. You have team and you have, there's so much focus now on money and everything. And so what about actually playing for your brothers and all that stuff? And I believe in all that stuff with football. I also believe that, again, it's like when A.J. Brown here, people were like, he's a problem in the locker room. No, he's pissed at the GM.
Right.
The dudes in the locker room want him to get paid too. And I think maybe in college football, it might a little different because some guys are still getting nothing, right? I mean, your third string right guard isn't getting a ton of NIL probably, but would he be welcome back in that if they work it out after he puts out a statement that he's not going to play? If they give him money, would he be welcome back in the locker room?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, would there be hard feelings one way or the other? I don't know. Like I do think that part of it is more cut and dry in the NFL. Of every player in the NFL wants to see other players get paid and make their money. They
bargain together.
Right.
They collectively bargain.
Yeah. This situation is different because we've talked about that even beyond the situation that UNLV is in. Like, does the NIL part of this create problems in the locker room under like normal circumstances with a team where you're like, hey, I'm the backup right tackle who's forced to be the starter now, and I've got no money coming in, and here's my quarterback over here getting paid $2 million per year, and they're asking me to do all this stuff they're not asking him to do. Like, where's my money? All this other stuff. Like, is that going to be a problem in like normal circumstances, much less something like this?
Yeah.
I think it's a little different in college.
Yeah, it is. And one thing I've said to that before is I like it especially at the top like power league schools. When you see the dude driving like an Escalade, it's like, oh, so someone got him money, but I didn't get any. It's just that it was, in a McDonald's bag before.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff, that dynamic did exist. And like, to me, look, it's still a really good deal for a lot of these kids to have a free education and all the things that go. It's just that the ones who have everybody after them who believe they can change their program and bring them championships and stuff should get paid more because it's called a free market.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think we need to continue to see people get a little bit more creative with the NIL stuff. Like when Brew McCoy catches a touchdown pass, people get cookies. I like that.
No, I love that stuff too. Yeah, and there are still a lot of it. I mean, Tennessee's been a great example of like a bunch of their. I mean, again, Kirby Connell is still getting like money for his mustache,
which good for him.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, he was like a pretty good middle reliever, but it's like people love the dude. So, I mean, there's still things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's pay for play, man. I mean, so pay when someone plays like this.
I mean, Will Levis could have had a lot of things going for him in the NIL era in college.
Well, I think he got himself.
I know, but I don't think he ever got the Levi's, which is just crazy to me. Big missed opportunity.
Does he have any eligibility left?
Will he be the quarterback of UNLV?
How about the Vols? The Vols taken after Nico?
Then we could really get in there. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take a look around the NFL coming up next. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode at 7:45. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville this Saturday for MTSU football. Blue Raiders taking on Memphis on the road. Pregame at 5 o'clock, kickoff at 6:30. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville, presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We're live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up shortly. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Speaking of the NFL, we are 3 weeks into the NFL season. Week 4 begins tonight with the Cowboys and the Giants on Thursday Night Football. Titans will have one of 2 Monday Night Football games coming up on Monday. The Titans and the Dolphins, which I can feel the anticipation from the nation just growing with each passing day to watch Will Levis versus Tyler Huntley, or whatever his name is now.
Is Skylar Thompson playing?
I don't know. I don't think anybody knows yet.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are waiting with bated breath to find out whether or not he's playing. And then you got the Seahawks and the Lions on Monday Night Football as well. What a doubleheader that's going to be. Seahawks 3-0.
Like, I'm actually going to be relegated to watching the Titans on my phone. Is that what you're telling me?
I think you are.
Travel, to fight somebody in my house.
I think you are.
Yeah. I hate the doubleheader. I do. I
do too.
This is it, right?
One Monday Night Football game. Let's do it one time. I don't think it is. I think they have some later in the year, but I will look.
I'd love to know that. I'm sure someone's written about this, the reasoning behind sort of randomly having some here and there. You have a doubleheader.
I don't know.
Interesting, but yeah, I don't like it. I like Monday Night Football.
I do too. One game, Monday Night Football.
Amateurs in college, just get in their room and board books. By golly, that's what we like.
But lots of surprises through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season, both on the good side of things and on the bad side of things. If you had to guess the betting favorite for NFL MVP after the first 3 weeks of the season, and I'll give you a little hint. There are 2 that are tied atop. The betting favorite for NFL MVP right now, who would your 2 guesses be?
Well, I mean, I guess Mahomes would be one of them. He is one. Numbers-wise, it's not great, but 3-0, and he makes the plays when he needs to make the plays. So you're saying that there's somebody that's
tied with him at the top.
Tied with Mahomes at the top. I guess Josh Allen.
That is correct.
Okay.
It is Mahomes and Josh Allen tied as the co-favorites for the MVP right now. CJ Stroud in third at plus 1,400.
And that's coming off like a real stinker. I mean, a real stinker for that team. And again, even like last year, I'm not a CJ Stroud hater because I think sometimes I say things and then you think I'm hating on somebody like Tom Brady. I love him other than his announcing and maybe he's overrated. But CJ Stroud last year, by the way, lost to Bryce Young, and Bryce Young had better numbers than him, outplayed him in that game. He had 215 and a touch in a 34-7 loss to the Vikings on Sunday, and he's still there odds-wise in the MVP race. Pretty interesting. But that's also preordained to a certain extent. I mean, your guy Jordan Love going into the season was pretty short list. Was it 5th or 6th? Okay.
Depending on which book you looked at, but yeah.
And now Malik Willis is the quarterback of the Packers. So sorry, Jordan.
Yes.
By the way, is Jordan? What's the word on him?
Yep, there's no word, but I think he's going to play.
Okay.
He said yesterday that he was very close to playing against the Titans, which would lead you to believe that he's playing this week.
So especially with the Vikings being 3-0.
Yes.
I mean, are they as surprising a team as there is?
Well,
in this
so
league
let's go through that. So Minnesota is 3-0. Obviously, Kansas City is 3-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0 and sit atop the AFC North. Buffalo is 3-0 as well. And the Seattle Seahawks are 3-0. Now, somebody asked me the other day who Seattle has played to this point. I did not know the answer. So I went and looked at the Seahawks schedule and what they've had to face to get to 3-0 at this point. And we're going to find out a whole lot more about the Seattle Seahawks coming up on Monday night when they play the Detroit Lions. Here are the 3 wins for Seattle to this point. Denver, New England, Miami without Tua. Those are your 3 wins for the
Yeah.
Seahawks at this point.
Yeah, a little bit of fool's gold with them. I mean, I think they're good, and that's turned that division in a really interesting situation. I mean, the Rams' comeback the other day was pretty epic.
Yep.
To drop the Niners to 1-2. So that's been some very surprising stuff in there. But there's a little bit of fool's gold with them. I think there may be some with the Vikings, although
Sammy D's playing well.
He's playing well, and also their defense is, I mean, Brian Flores, that's all anybody talks about is like the stuff they do is not like what anybody else in this league does. And the bottom line is, I mean, they beat, they go bomb the Giants, great, whatever, but they just beat the Niners and Texans back to back.
Yeah.
Pretty
good wins.
The Niners and Texans combined in 2 games scored 24 points on the Vikings.
Yep. What does that tell you?
I mean, I'm interested, man. I'm interested in them. And I think the Steelers are good. I think you are seeing a little bit. I'm not ready to – I watched a fair amount of that last game. And Justin Fields made some huge plays. There's still like – I don't know that I'm ready to declare him, comeback player of the year this year or something like that. I would stick with him over Russ, though, like when Russ is healthy.
Yep.
And look, I mean, they still have guys on D who are just as game wrecker as they come.
Of these 1 and 2 teams, who should be, I don't know if panic is the right word, but the most nervous at this point? So you have Baltimore at 1 and 2. You've got the Dallas Cowboys at 1 and 2, San Francisco at 1 and 2 as well, and the Atlanta Falcons at 1 and 2 with the money they spent with Okerko coming in there. Which team should be the most nervous right now?
Yeah. Well, I think that I still think the Niners are going to be fine. The Falcons, obviously tough one. It's a huge win at Philly. And I think you saw it in Philly and the Chiefs game. Like Kirk's good. I mean, that's not their problem. I mean, they easily, and by the way, there was a PI they probably should have called on the Chiefs. So if you want to talk about Chiefs getting calls, that one I'll listen to. So I don't know. I mean, it's early. I'm not worried about the Niners, but I think the Cowboys would be the biggest concern of them. They've given up 89 points in 3 games. I mean, they're giving up 30 points a game right now. And they have probably the most talented defensive player in the NFL, but there's a lot of other stuff not going well on that side of the ball. So I'm looking at them. They have 1 win against the awful Browns.
Yes.
So I think that's the concern. And because again, like in this NFC, I mean, I really think it's a lot. I mean, it's open, man. Like a team can come out and make a run, but so far, very troubling what their defense looks like.
And then you got the 0-3 teams. Look, Cincinnati at 0-3, certainly the most surprising 0-3 to this point. Then you've got Jacksonville and the Titans at 0-3 as well. Which of those teams is going to win first? That's going to be interesting. See, I would assume Cincinnati. But Titans got a good shot coming up on Monday against Miami.
Titans need to be that team. And I know that they play Monday, so at that point, they may be the last team with
they might be
with a goose egg, but they should. They are good enough, especially given Miami's quarterback situation, to go win that game. They need to stop the bleeding and get a win. You mentioned the Ravens, by the way. That's the game of the week is Bills at Ravens.
Yes.
And they blew the game to the Raiders. They may look back at that at the end of the year and be like, how the heck did we lose to the freaking Raiders? We're up double figures in the 4th quarter. They blew it. But you saw last game. I like the Derrick Henry situation with Lamar Jackson. I think you're going to see more games like that where they both between them have like 200 or 200 or close to 200 yards. And I think they're just going to be fine.
I think they'll be fine. I still like if they get down, are they equipped to come back?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big question that I've got with them. If you get down a couple scores early, can you come back in a game like that? Do you have the patience to come back? Is it like unless you're just down by 3 touchdowns early in the 3rd quarter, like I think you got to stick with what you're good at for a while,
sure,
and just see if you can get back into the game that way.
That's also, I agree. That's going to always be the question until I guess, they win it all or better at that stuff. But also, like, it's just weird that they blow double-digit leads.
Yeah. By the way, a couple more. doubleheaders coming up on Monday Night Football, even beyond this week. Week 7, the Ravens and the Bucs, and then the Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals at the same time. And then week 15, which I believe is close to where that Titans game fell last year, week 14, 15, somewhere in that neighborhood. You'll have the Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings and the Atlanta Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders. Doubleheader Monday Night Football.
Bears and Vikings, Falcons and Raiders?
Yeah.
Okay. Okie dokie.
I don't know why they're doing it, but they are.
Yeah, I'm sure if someone, well, I'd ask you to text me, but you can't right now. But if someone knows the rationale, I'm sure again it's been reported on. I just missed it. The rando, I get that a couple of years ago I think they tried it for the first time, but this like randomly, okay, week 7, let's throw a doubleheader at you. Is that like they don't like the one game that would be a standalone, so they're like, let's just have 2.
I mean, yeah, I think that's part of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They look at it and they say, Titans, Dolphins. Let's see if we can't throw Seattle and Detroit in there. That'd be great.
So my answer is, okay, just give us Seattle and Detroit.
I'm with you.
Great. Good Monday Night Football. Thank you.
Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks in Madison for a Monday Night Football edition of the pregame show from 4 to 6 p.m. They'll break down the Titans Week 4 matchup against the Dolphins, give you the latest updates before the game. Pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
I mean, I think that's got to be largely about the injury. You're talking about a microdiscectomy. Ugh. By the way, I didn't even realize this. He also has had a torn ACL in the past and sciatica symptoms from lifting weights that required a different surgery. So 2 surgeries plus an ACL.
What was that last word?
Sciatica. Sciatica, and I may be totally butchering that, symptoms from lifting weights.
You probably
Sciatica?
are.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's sciatica. Oh, my God. I'm an idiot.
Oh, a classic here on the program. Still maybe a top 5 moment in the history of Robby and Rexrode. I enjoyed it.
It's the one thing I've done that got radio station from my, well, not home state, but my one-time home state of Virginia. Even there, it was like, hey, well, you want to come on the show and just talk about, sciatica? I'm like, oh, I guess.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, that was fun. All right, I'm gonna get into a story here. There's a few different offshoots of this, including, Brett Favre talking about, we talk about Brett Favre and all that happened with Brett Favre and allegedly and all this stuff, right? But Brett Favre talking about he has Parkinson's disease, which separately, you can separate these things, is tragic to hear. Tommy Kramer, former Vikings quarterback, talking about dementia. I mean, there's just more and more as we go with these guys who played football. And I obviously in a different era that they played football, but that bad things happen to the brain. So that's worth mentioning now because I do sometimes mention Brett Favre flippantly, right?
We do.
In relation to this thing. There's also another serious story related to Brett Favre here, and I want to bring some attention to it. Mark Fainaru-Wada is an investigative reporter for ESPN. So he had a really interesting story yesterday about Anna Wolf. Now, Anna Wolf, we've talked a lot about this when it happened. She wrote the story for Mississippi Today. It's a nonprofit outlet. She won the Pulitzer Prize for the story, which was a $77 million welfare fraud scandal in Mississippi, the nation's second poorest state. And of course, the reporting was then Governor Phil Bryant, Favre, some others got millions of dollars that were supposed to go to welfare families, were instead used on projects that included college volleyball facility, Southern Miss, and apparently I didn't realize this, a concussion drug company. And then obviously it becomes national news and things like that. Well, the former governor is trying to sue for defamation, and in the lawsuit is demanding emails and all the notes and all these things and her sources. And the judge right now has ordered that they show the judge what they have. So this is, look, I know that now you tread into politics and things like that, which I really have no interest in doing, but this is First Amendment stuff. Okay. And I know people invoke amendments all the time, but this is why the First Amendment, it prevents laws respecting and establishing religion, prohibiting the free exercise of religion, abridging the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of assembly, the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's the First Amendment. December 15th, 1791. It should cover a situation like this. It has before, but it can get really into gray areas, and sometimes again politics can get into that. This is a story that I really don't have any screaming rant about, but it's concerning to me. And this is, perma rant, but people who are trying to do journalism, who put their names on things and are real people in the world. Okay. We need to distinguish between that and people who are on the internet who don't have a name and who anonymously post crap that people want to believe is true. And I know that's separate from this, but this is important stuff that if you can't do this, and if you can't hold public officials accountable, again, regardless of their political affiliation, because plenty of people on both sides of the political aisle have done bad, unethical things that need to be reported on, then we have a real problem in this country. So this is an important story, and it's something that I know I'm going to keep an eye on, and I hope that people pay attention to it because it does matter.
So to be clear, he's asking for notes and sources.
Yeah, and giving up the sources, and obviously that's really what it comes down to,
Yeah.
right? I mean, truth. You talk about defamation and slam. Thing like truth is always the. I mean that's the defense, right?
Sure.
It's truth. So I don't know where it's going to go, but just the idea that the judge is right now is having Wolf, but also Mississippi Today show what they have. Giving up sources. I mean, look, you can go back to Woodward and Bernstein, and Bob Woodward did not give up his source. And you're talking about a source that ended up ending a presidency. That's how it should work. So that should never change. That should never erode. And I'm concerned. So there you go. There's my little sort of journalism, calm, concerned rant.
That was a full display of a long fuse, an actual display of a long fuse.
Well, I mean, some things
We've been waiting on it.
Some things are more scary than angering.
That is true.
It's
true. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the 0-3 Tennessee Titans, his thoughts on other headlines around the National Football League, as well as we prepare for Week 4 to get underway tonight. Check out our college football game of the week on 94.9 The Fan this Saturday. Georgia taking on Alabama, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. We'll have Charles with us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Mark here with you on this Thursday morning. And as we do every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our man Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
Doing well. My fatigue nerve is acting up a little bit this morning, but I'll be all right. Yeah.
I know a guy for that.
Rexrode's
an expert.
I don't know how I had not heard that until
Oh,
today.
really? You never heard that before?
Yeah. No, I had never heard that before. But as I'm listening to Joe say it, I'm like, is Robby just licking his chops listening? Like how far in is he going to stick the knife on this thing?
No, he set me up very well.
There's a nice video element to it as well, where my face is just grinning as he says.
Realizing what I've done and taking full advantage of it.
Skiatika.
How you guys doing this morning?
We're awesome, Charles. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. Titans fans, not doing so great. Malik Willis waltzes in here and beats the crap out of the Titans on Sunday. Titans dropped to 0-3. So, Charles, let me ask it to you this way. You got the Titans at 0-3, and they keep turning the football over, and they've not forced any turnovers. Jacksonville gave up about 1,000 points to Buffalo the other night, also at 0-3. What do you make of the futility of both of these teams in the AFC South?
Oh, boy. Well, look, the Titans, it's funny because I'm like, man, the offensive line, and I'm like, all right, I got to move off Levis. Like, let me get away from just constantly harping on some of the decisions of Levis and find another root cause for how this team, what's failing, how it can get better. And the line is obviously not playing. I expected more. Now it's early. A lot of offensive lines are playing poorly across the NFL. It's the preseason now is in September for most teams. And I expect that things get better, but the right tackle situation now is, I think it's got to be really worrisome for the Titans just in terms of consistency, mistakes, performance. It's really hard to fix this now that you're in the season. You try to short up schematically. You hope to figure out exactly what a player's doing wrong, and you coach it out of them, or is there an injury that's lingering here that we don't know about? I don't know, but it's the line to me is really concerned. And then also when I look at like offensively for the Titans, they got to get something out of the running back spot. Like just from a functioning standpoint, taking some heat off of Levis, you got to be able to produce with that running back rotation. That's not happening. Those are definitely the two things I think I'm probably most concerned about offensively for the Titans. And, Jacksonville, we talked about this last week. I think, again, I don't think Doug Peterson is coaching particularly well. I think his clock management has been poor. I mentioned it last week, red zone offense for them. It's once again, problematic, but at the same time too, like at some point, Trevor Lawrence he's got to commandeer something here. He's got to find a gear that I feel like has eluded him his entire career as a quarterback. And I was thinking about it. I was talking to actually Mike Floyer from Pro Football Talk. We were talking this morning, and he brought up Lawrence, and I thought back to the preseason, and I go through Jets camp, and they're practicing against the Commanders, and I got a Jets source who brings up Jaden Daniels without me even asking, just being like, hey, this dude's a baller, he's so good, all these things. And then I go to this game, and Jaden Daniels basically, he's told, we're going to protect you. We're getting the ball out of your hands. Like, we're starting our third string guard at right tackle this game. Like, don't get killed. Okay, just do what we say. Which Daniels does, except one point they send in this screen pass. He audibles out of it. He's not supposed to. He audibles out of it and throws a go ball route to Diami Brown. Huge play, awesome play. And the Commanders, they were pissed. Like, they were upset. Like, Dan Quinn was upset. The front office, like, he had to be talked to after that. It was like, hey, man, we're trying to protect you. That's great. You did it. But, understand what we're trying to do here. But when you talk to his teammates, they're like, yeah, that's a dude. Like, this dude does not like to lose. This is like, you could just see how it changed kind of the enthusiasm of the offense and kind of galvanized behind him. I felt like I saw that with Brock Purdy too, when he walked into the Niners, starting job, and the things you heard like talk to Trent Williams, you're like, God, how is the All-Pro Hall of Fame tackle this? Like he is loving this dude. He's so far, like in Purdy's camp. Like, what is going on here? And then you watch Purdy play, and you're like, okay, like I get it. I see why. There's just certain quarterbacks that I think they're rally guys, and I just don't know what the deal is with Lawrence, if he's got that in him.
Well, you mentioned Daniels. I tweeted, I'll stand by it, Charles. He could be an MVP. Am I just wildly overreacting to how he carved up the Bengals, and I just feel like he's got the elements of a great player?
I mean, he can be an MVP. If he's MVP this year, I mean,
not this year. I'm just saying he's going to win MVP.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, when you watch him, the only thing that worries me about him is size, right? Because you look at him and you're like, man, he is just not a thick guy. Like he is a thin guy. But I see him as all these years with like Lamar Jackson, we're like, oh, he's this dynamic runner, he's this playmaker and all this stuff. And if they can just get him to, play great football from the pocket, and then in the playoffs play great football from the pocket, and all these different, like I look at Jaden Daniels, I'm like, no, this dude is a thrower. Like he is a pocket guy, but he is a pocket guy who also has this dynamic running playmaking element to him. He's everything we've wanted for years from quarterbacks. And it's not like, I don't want to kill RG3 here, but it's not like the RG3 season where we're like, okay, that rookie season was fun to watch, but offensively, when you talk to other teams, they're like, yeah, we're going to figure him out. Like and then he got hurt, and that dramatically changed things. But I think even inside the organization at that time, they were questioning how high is the ceiling for this offense with RG3 in it. And I don't think that's what's happening in Washington. I think they've been very conservative, and then they've slowly opened the playbook. If you look at his passing charts from weeks 1, 2, and 3, you see, okay, they kept it real short. Okay, they opened it up a little more in week 2, especially second half of week 2. And then week 3, they're like, you know what? Let's give the kid the field. Let's let him do what he does. And the Terry McLaurin touchdown where he just gets decked, the free rushing safety off the edge, and he knows it's going to happen. And he just says, nope, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it right in the teeth, and I'm going to put the ball up and let Terry go get it. I mean,
pretty good.
Like, yeah, that's one of those situations where you're like, ooh, I can see why guys, are so head over heels in love with him already.
What about the Cincinnati part of this? They dropped to 0-3. Obviously, there's been the Chase contract situation. T. Higgins playing on the franchise tag. Is it time to panic yet if you're a Bengals fan with the 0-3 start?
Well, they can't run the ball. I mean, they definitely seeing how Joe Mixon before he got hurt was helping the Houston offense, and really what he had added to the Houston offense. There's like just an element of how he ran, a toughness that I think he kind of instilled as soon as he got into Houston. It's missing in Cincinnati. I mean, their running game is it's crap. Like it's really, really poor. And, I think that's obviously really concerning. I think Higgins being out for as long as he has been, I expect that will improve things now that he's back in there, and, give him a couple of games to kind of get his feet under him. But the Chase awkwardness, there's a lot of noise. There's definitely a lot of noise around that team that I think clearly was distracting. I don't think the offensive line has played as well either. The one thing I will say about them, they're going to go to Carolina. Like I get it, Andy Dalton, like gangbusters in game 1, and that maybe that changes Carolina pretty significantly, but I still think they can get after Carolina's defense on the road. This is a good opportunity for them to get themselves right. They host Baltimore, and then they go to the Giants after that. But I feel like, okay, here's a 3-game kind of run here with Carolina and the Giants on the schedule. Granted, those are 2 road games where they're going to have an ability to kind of get themselves, back on track. If they win both of those games, granted, they'd still be 2-4, not great, but they need some positive momentum on offense. And I think those are 2 defenses where they can definitely get it. But it's a tough start. I think Joe Burrow needs to go back to his old haircut.
Yes, I would agree with that.
He may be onto something there.
He looks
Someone called him Ellen DeGeneres the other day.
Yeah.
I lost it.
He looks like early 2000s Justin Timberlake out there.
Oh, yeah. He's got to get rid of that.
Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, I mean, I think, Bills, Chiefs, we know they're legit. Steelers and Vikings. You buy One more than the other? Neither? Both?
How can he? What the Vikings are doing, man? like, I'm sorry, but like, they shut down a San Francisco offense, and that was, they were healthier when they shut down that offense, and the 49ers were healthier than they are right now. And then, I mean, what they just did to Houston, I'm like, oh my God, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator there, despite suing the NFL, despite shredding his last owner and basically saying, hey, this guy tampered and all the things they did, you're like, he'll never get another head coaching job. Now I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, he is. No one likes that week. And I think I brought it up in the past where I've talked to Sean Payton about where he said, like, it's like literally the worst week of your year when you have to deal with like game planning for this guy's defense. It just sucks. Like you're looking at, post snap rotations where you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at right now. Like, it takes time to study exactly what they're doing post snap and different looks that they're throwing at teams. It literally takes guys who you really respect, offensive minds in the game. They have to spend a lot of time trying to decode exactly what they're seeing, and then they go out there and play it. And Flores changes it on the field. The quarterback doesn't know what he's seeing. The OC doesn't know what he's seeing. The head coach is like, I don't like this. Is calling up to the box, going like, guys, what do we got to figure this out by halftime. They're so legitimate defensively, and then Darnold. We're all waiting for the wheels to fall off. I get it. And it's been the history with Sam Darnold that just, it gets to us. But when he went to San Francisco, he got better and like tangibly better to the point where I knew pretty quickly they're getting rid of Trey Lance. Like, Darnold's going to be their guy. He's absorbed this offense pretty quickly, the Shanahan offense. And then he goes to Minnesota where he's running the same Shanahan offense. And the confidence, and it's a complicated offense. It takes usually quarterbacks about 2 years to really get their feet under them with it. So he's, even now, you think he's kind of just starting to hit his stride. But I talked about in my QB column on Tuesday, there's this throw he makes, this touchdown to Naylor in the end zone. And in the span of 2 seconds, when you watch him, you can see Naylor was his third read. And that is not Darnold. Career-wise, like, he's been like a one-read guy in panic. Like, he's never, it's like, why can't he get to a second read without making a bad mistake, all these different things. He's doing it now in Minnesota. And I'm like, this might be real. This actually might be what good Sam Darnold looks like in the NFL. And I'm really intrigued to see how this all plays out and like where he goes at the end of the season. Like, does it put Minnesota in a situation? Does he play well enough through the course of the season to put Minnesota into a spot where, there's some hand wringing about, like, do we just keep what we have and try to work this out with him? Maybe we deal JJ McCarthy. Like, what do we do here now? And remember, Addison just got on the field for them. TJ Hawkinson isn't even in that offense right now. Like, he could get better. As you can see, I'm buying Minnesota big time.
My goodness, I guess.
Yeah.
Jordan Love might have something to say about that this week, huh, Robbie?
We'll see how that goes. See how it goes.
Dude, the NFC North, man, like, if you're the Bears, you're sitting there going, okay. Like, look, Matt LaFleur doing this week, right? You're like, dude, like, is this guy who's like a genius? Like, what exactly is? And then you're looking at Detroit.
You're looking at Shane Waldron and comparing LaFleur to him too.
No, but that's what I'm saying. They're saying, okay, we're looking at Detroit. They made something out of Jared Goff, right? Like, they got him upright. Like, now they're not perfect right now and everything, but you kind of see what an offensive coach, what they've been able to do with Ben Johnson and all that stuff. And then you look at Green Bay. And now you look at Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, and you're like, oh my God, like what is going on? And then they're sitting there going, all right, like, we got this staff. We can't even figure out how to run a balanced offense at this point. We can't run the football. Like, that's another situation where it's been nothing but noise around Caleb Williams. I don't know how.
And now Jaden Daniels and Justin Fields are both better than him. Great.
Yes.
Yay, Chicago.
The Willis thing, though, to me, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, you got to be like pulling your hair out if you're sitting here.
It's been a fun week.
Good Lord. I can't even. I'm like, this cannot be real. And then, watching him watching him against the Titans, I'm like, oh my God. And it's not like it's completely, it's like, okay, we've got 6 plays for you. We're going to run these 6 plays and that's it. Like, he's throwing downfield. He's challenging corners at times. He's like, the way he's running, his confidence. I'm like, God, what is going on?
Coach of the year.
It's wild, man. Yeah. Matt LaFleur. That's, I don't like Titans. Yeah. That's the Titans are sitting there going, I remember when LaFleur got hired for that job and like talking to people inside the Titans at that time and then being like, really? Okay. like, all right, I guess.
So
guess
Robby said
be a
too.
head coach.
It is what I said.
Yeah. I was definitely people in that building that were like, oh, okay, that's a little wild. Like, he's going to be head coach. And he's been amazing since he's gotten there.
What about Anthony Richardson? So Richardson throws the pick the other day. We've talked about the Lawrence and Levis part of this. Both those guys not going very well to this point. Richardson, you're talking about his 7th start. So there's still a lot of time here for us to figure out exactly what he is. But the interception the other day was pretty rough. I will say that.
Yeah, I assume you're talking the 4th and goal.
The 4th and goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost my mind when he threw that, and when I went back later, I hadn't seen the tip that occurred with the defender in his face, and then when I went back and looked, I'm like, oh, okay, the ball did get deflected, and I saw what he was trying to do. He was trying to sidearm it into the back corner of the end zone. It was not smart. Like, you're like, that's a bad play. Like, that's a low percentage, throw. And there's it's a high percentage, like a high percentage of risk that you're taking here. So even if it doesn't get tipped, I'm like, I don't know. This is, it's not the kind of play that you would hope you would process in that moment. But I also think when I looked at it, I'm like, I wonder if he would have ran in the past. Like, I wonder if, because that's one part of his game that when you watch him, they've kind of hammered it out of him. Like, don't do what you were doing as a rookie. You can't be taking off running, can't be taking these risks. And he really has not. And now I'm wondering, okay, did you take a tool, did you take a club out of his bag and it completely changed the way that, he feels when he's playing, football? And there's the other pick that he threw was just god awful too. Like, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think he was rolling to his right, his move his right, he throws it across the field. Like, it was just another terrible, absolutely terrible pick. And I don't know if you go back and look at Josh Allen's rookie year. And again, this is Richardson's rookie year. Until he plays game 18, I'm going to consider this still his rookie year. If you go back and look at Josh Allen's rookie season, he had some dog games, like some really bad games that we've forgotten about. And I mean, every bit as bad as what Richardson is doing.
Oh, he was bad.
What's that?
He was bad.
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, he really was. And we've gotten away from that because he took the stride in year 2, and then he took the really big stride in year 3. And so, I don't want to completely kill Richardson because I'm like, all right, well, let's see what it looks like from one year to the next, year 2, year 3. And I see how Jalen Hurts is functioning now without Shane Steichen there. Hurts leads the NFL in turnovers since Steichen left the Eagles operation. And so I still have some faith that they can figure this out, but I do think maybe the running aspect, they have to kind of loosen their grip a little bit and be like, okay, look, we're going to live with some moderate risk and we're going to let you access your legs a little bit more and operate out of structure, running it a little more than just throwing it. And all the jokes that people make about like, it's either the greatest throw you've seen or the worst throw you've ever seen really feels true when you watch him play.
Yeah. I mean, it's feast or famine of players. At least there's some feasting.
It is.
But yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Okay. So here's a random question for you, Charles, that we were talking about earlier.
Questions.
Yeah. Well, that's basically mostly what I asked, but, so Monday you got another, double header, and this week, Monday Night Football double header. And then we were, Robby was going through it. It's like week 7, they've got one, in week 15.
Week
right?
15.
What do you have a rhyme or reason on the rando double headers and what the reasoning is?
Frankly, I don't know why they choose the weeks that they choose. In my mind, there's the sense that I have is, I'm sure it's probably tied to whatever the television. So like the way the league operates, it's their television deals are pretty complicated. And I learned more about it when we went through the COVID year and they erased a couple of games. Like it was the Steelers game. They started moving games and taking games off the table, and it was like, okay, they have to make this game up if they cancel a game. I remember that it was like they were talking about canceling, I believe it was a Steelers game, and I was talking to somebody in the league office, and he was like, okay, well, we can reschedule it. This is where we can reschedule it down the line. But the problem we have is, the network needs, here's what the network already has scheduled, like in that spot down the line. Here's all the advertising credits we would have to give to the advertisers who bought time. Or the network would have to give advertising credits to everybody who already bought time for this game in this specific slot. And I'm like, wow, there's so much more that goes into, how they hammer out exactly when they want certain games played. And I assume that's some of what is going on with those doubleheaders. I don't know why there's not, like, as you said, a rhyme or reason why they seemingly pick certain weeks to run doubleheaders when they do, but I guarantee you there is. I just don't. There's only so much stuff I can
find out for us, Charles.
I'm too busy being like, why did Anthony Richardson lose his mind on this play? Like, why did he? Like I can't. I'll tell you what. You've asked me. I will effort that, and I appreciate Joe giving me a heads up maybe last week to go and find this information and bring it. Thank you for bringing it up during the show.
Yeah. Things sort of pop into my brain. Sciatica among them.
Look, Robby hurts you. You hurt me. It's just a big circle.
Exactly.
It is a nice big circle that we've got here. So we've got one rookie head coach here that is 0-3, and Brian Callahan. Meanwhile, in Seattle, they're 3-0. Now, I've gone through the wins. They beat Denver, New England, and Miami without Tua. So still something left to prove for Seattle in terms of quality of competition. But are you a believer in the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, you look at, I think a couple of things. I'm surprised their passing offense has been much better than I expected. I mean, I think they got to be like top 5, I would say, right now in the NFL in passing yardage. They're definitely able to move the ball. Throwing it a little bit more aggressively with Geno this season than I think I expected. Then again, I mean, I think when you also look at the contributions there, DK Metcalf is playing, pretty much at an all-pro level right now. Jackson Smith and Jigba's turned it out, like what they thought we were going to get out of him. He's filled that role really nicely. Lockett has been solid, and they've been healthy. Now Kenneth Walker has not been healthy, but Zach Charbonnet has stepped in really well for them at the running back spot. And I feel like the offensive line is playing probably a little bit ahead of itself or where they thought it would be at this point. And Geno's been fairly efficient. Now he's had some turnovers. I think he's thrown 3 picks this year, but they're not playing scared. That's for sure. And then defensively, it's sort of, this is what I expected with Mike McDonald. Like when he went there, and you talk to other people in the NFC West, they're like, great. Like, this is not the guy we wanted to deal with from a defensive standpoint, twice a year. And, that's coming from the Rams, it's coming from the Niners. Like both the Rams and the Niners are like, oh, we didn't want this guy in our division. But again, it's early. The quality of competition, I think is a fair question. But when you look at the rest of the division, I mean, San Francisco's really beat up right now. The Christian McCaffrey thing, we'll see if he plays this year. I mean, I don't know. It
doesn't sound good when you're going to Germany, right?
No, and I'm not saying this is why he goes overseas, but every once in a while you would see guys go overseas for stem cell treatments or things like that, things that were a little more, regulated here in the U.S.
Right.
Mostly, particularly when it comes to the stem cell stuff, that's more bone related issues. But as soon as someone leaves like that, I'm like, okay, typically it's you're going to seek some kind of medical care that's maybe a little more highly regulated in the U.S. or it's a little more, I don't want to say experimental, but it's just it's a huge deal for him, especially in season, to me making a trip like that. And I instantly, when I heard that, I'm like, he might not play this year. That's just it's very aggressive to be happening right in the middle of the season. And I think when Kyle was asked about it, I remember hearing his like sort of answer when someone asked him about, is there a chance that McCaffrey won't play this year? And just the way he answered, like, it didn't feel like the confident a coach has an opportunity to be like, of course, yes, he's playing. Like, this is not a season-ending thing. You come out and you can definitively say that. And I didn't feel like Kyle was really that convincing, and so that might not get better for them in terms of McCaffrey coming back into the fold. But the Rams are really beat up, right? Arizona's, they've still got some growth that's left ahead of them. And also now you're looking at Seattle and you're saying, man, everybody else is kind of banged up already in the division. They're already kind of having some problems. And Seattle's gotten off to this start. They got to feel great, being at 3-0 and not facing the health concerns that pretty much every other team in the division is.
Charles Robinson, our guest, joins us every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. Charles, you're welcome for the homework assignment that Rexrode has given you. Thank you very much for being with us on the program today.
I really love digging into TV questions.
A nice change of pace for you. Come on, man. It'll be great.
Let me pull up all those TV sources I have, all these network sources. This will go.
You're
really
connected,
you know
man.
Everyone. Come on.
Hey, let me ask you: is Tennessee winning the national championship? Is that going to happen?
I'm starting to get my hopes up.
I think they've got a chance. They're a team that has a chance. Yeah. You wagering or something?
No. Okay. I'm just kind of curious. I've sort of seen the start and everything, and I when I'm kind of shaping, I'm not really working on the draft or anything, but everybody keeps bringing up that defensive end. Like they're just in love with that kid.
Pierce.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They just, man, he's got a lot of fans in the NFL. So I'm just kind of curious to see where, not to, obviously we're closing this out here, but a guy I'm really excited to see. I want to see Hendon Hooker play football in the NFL.
I agree.
I'm with you.
They're very.
A lot of people in Nashville agree with you right now, by the way.
Man, I'm telling you, they're the Lions organization. I'm like, he is good. Like, they're very enthused at how he's looked and come along and kind of how he carries himself. And like, I'd really love to see him step on a field at some point this season to see what he's got.
I've been saying forever, he's going to be a good starter in the NFL when he gets his chance. And at some point, Jared Goff runs a 6.8 40. So at some point, it'll probably catch up with him.
Look, with the contract there, like it's got to happen somewhere else. But that's the thing. Yeah. Like you see Willis and operate under LaFleur, and you're kind of like, you feel bad because you're like, man, like what if you just want to put every player, when they come into the league, you want to put them in a situation with a great coach who can, guide them and take care of them. Darnold did not have that. And then you see him kind of land in the hands of competent people in back-to-back years, and you see the strides, and you're like, it just stinks to feel like you lost a portion of some guys' careers because they just went through bad situations. And I think about Bryce a lot, honestly, when Bryce Young, like, I'm like, is he going to surface later? And we're going to be like, oh, no, it really was just a situation there that was terrible, just like it was for Baker when he went through Carolina, just like it was for Darnold when he went through Carolina.
Charles, thank you, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely, gents.
Charles Robinson joins us every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. A lot to react to there from Charles. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Hey, folks, Rex here for FanDuel Sportsbook. Did you know that this year FanDuel is giving you a chance to win big every Thursday night with FanDuel Squares? That's right. Just like Super Bowl Squares. Everybody's played Super Bowl Squares, but this is better. It's not random. You're not just getting randomly assigned numbers. You get to go pick your squares. You can pick as many as you like, and you get to see the odds beforehand on the number, and then you bet them live during the game. Pretty cool. Another way to get in on FanDuel, make some money. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/Joe102. Bet on those squares. You got some Giants Cowboys tonight. Should be a fun, hopefully, NFC showdown. If you're new to FanDuel, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is now withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbet.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Appreciate Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment. Who knew Charles was such a big Vols guy?
Yeah, apparently, huh? I don't know.
Vols going to win it all? You know how I'd really like to see play quarterback? Hendon Hooker. Thank you, Charles.
I agree with him. And by the way, I will revert back to a take from the 2022 season, which is that Hendon Hooker will be a better NFL QB than Will Levis. So we'll see if it ends up. We'll see if Hendon Hooker even gets a chance to start in the NFL. But I would like to see at some point him get an opportunity.
Okay, so you're not trading for Bryce Young. Would you trade for Hendon Hooker right now? Nick with a very quick no from the other room.
Wow. Even when your Vols zip up, you're a hater, huh? I'd think about it.
I would think about it too. What would the package be? You wouldn't have to trade Levis straight up for him.
If you're, first of all, it's really interesting in all seriousness with the Lions in that situation, because like Charles said, you just paid for Jared Goff, and it's like last week, forced to watch the Lions. Goff makes good plays and he's a good quarterback, but I swear when there's a hint of this take, I wish I could prove it. Give me like 6 games. Give me 6 games so I can change reality and make Jared Goff the Titans quarterback. We would all say he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. Like, if that guy has any pass rush at all, he's like, he's just like he's a diseased goat crumbling in the pocket. All due respect to Jared Goff. I'm not.
Remember, I'm saying with all due respect.
I mean, he is the absolute classic example of, if you give good, he's accurate, he has a good arm, he sees the field, all those things. So those are all important, and he deserves that respect. But like, as far as if there's any duress at all, he's toast. So the Lions are committed to him. I think, obviously you like the idea of having a capable backup, because he is a sitting duck and he can get hurt. And I'm talking about Goff, all due respect. But then again, man, it's tough for Hendon because it's a great offensive line. And it's actually one of the rare ones in the NFL. You could say that about it. It might be years here with him just sort of relegated to being a backup, where I think now that he's healthy, I thought in the preseason you saw some really good things from him. Some you still got to learn the slide stuff and things like that. But I've always thought since he was here, like, this is not a mirage. This guy can play. And, another thing about that, Robby, is, of course, we talk so much about the Browns offense. There is absolutely more runway needed, I believe, for those quarterbacks. Like Nico, when he comes out, I think it'll be the same thing. It's just the way that offense breaks the field down for a quarterback is so unlike anything you see in the NFL. Like, you don't get to just do a half field read and just whatever leverage the guy's playing, I'm going to throw deep or short. It's just not the NFL.
Yeah.
Like Bryce Petty, I covered Bryce Petty in the Cotton Bowl 10 years ago. And I'm like, is that the best quarterback I've ever seen? He just is carving up a Narduzzi defense like it's not even there. And that guy, I guess he got a cup of coffee. Would Bryce Petty, I don't know. But if Bryce Petty got a few years to get used to the NFL, could he have been a good NFL quarterback? I'm just saying, the offense, I do think, extends the time period. So maybe this will end up being good for Hendon Hooker. And when he does finally get out there, he's ready for pretty significant changes in how you have to go about your business.
So what would you
What are you laughing about over there?
What would you give up? Oh, I'll show you what I'm laughing at here in a second.
Okay. Would I get if I was the Titans for Hendon Hooker?
Yeah.
If you're really talking about a serious trade, first of all, do the Lions want to take, I guess, another young QB to be their backup?
Probably not.
I don't know. I guess
there's no reason for the Lions to make this trade at the moment.
No, there's not.
Maybe in the offseason. But right now,
but again, unless that's the thing, I don't remember who the third QB in the organization is. There was it Sudfeld, I think.
I think you're correct.
Which is not. There's another guy who, by the way, played in some version of this tempo offense at Indiana. So, if I'm the Lions, I'm asking for a pretty significant pick.
Yeah.
For a talented young backup who, again, they may need him. So if I'm the Lions, I'm looking give me a third, give me a fourth, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that if you're the Titans.
Yeah.
So
probably not. Unless, again,
hey, Levis throws a couple more picks. Vol Twitter will be outside Nissan Stadium.
Sure.
Make the trade.
Look, I don't know. I mean, obviously Brian Callahan, every draft those guys go through, I'm sure there's at some level of evaluation, even though they have Joe Burrow, right? So I don't know that 2 years ago he wasn't like, oh my God, Hendon Hooker, this guy's, could he be completely enamored with a particular quarterback? And then I don't know that it's not true.
I mean, you could throw the same thing into Bryce Young. Like, does Brian Callahan love Bryce Young and thinks that the situation in Carolina has just totally ruined him?
Like Charles said, let's go through. Again, like Stilly's great Joe Brady take. Yeah. He really stinks. He's like the best OC in the NFL now. Crazy how that works. But yeah, Sam Darnold, boy, he looked awful in Carolina. Baker Mayfield, boy, he looked awful in Carolina. Funny how there's a constant variable, or is it just a constant that's part of this equation?
Well, we learned the other day, constant variables are a thing.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll have more reaction to Charles Robinson coming up next. Tune in to the Chase and Big Joe show from 9 to 11 a.m. for your chance to win all-inclusive tickets in the Eurostone Club, the WWE Friday Night SmackDown at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Friday, October the 4th. Contest presented by Green Trees, a family-owned cannabis company and dispensary providing high-quality legal THC products. Check them out online at greentreescompany.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Got some tickets to give away to see the Preds take on the Tampa Bay Lightning at Bridgestone Arena in their preseason home opener coming up on Saturday. Be caller 5-615-737-1025. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line. Welcome in CJ in Hendersonville. CJ, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning. Good to be on. Good to be listening.
Thank you.
Talking a little Titans, of course. And I'm just wondering, what do y'all think is like the most optimistic approach from where we're at right now? I mean, you look at, I think when it comes to winning franchise, I'll use the Minnesota Vikings right now as a blueprint. They basically went to their defensive coordinator in their off season, Mr. Brian Flores, and said, here's a wish list. Go find yourself 4 or 5 free agents that you can put on defense and make plays. And right now, I'm going to tell you something. If you watch that team, that may be a Super Bowl team in the NFC. I mean, they're scary good, dominating the Texans, dominating the San Francisco 49ers, dominating their home opener. And what is the most optimistic approach that we can have as Titans fans, I guess is my question. Your thoughts?
Yep. Thanks, CJ. Appreciate the call. A lot of rat poison for the Vikings this week, by the way. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's perfect for you because they're good. And I think it's a good point. It's funny that he said that, though, because I would also say Denard Wilson, I'm sure, had some input on getting some guys like L'Jarius Sneed.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Woozy.
Yep.
You go get Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray. And, of course, you draft T'Vondre Sweat. Those are some talented players you've added to the defense, which, again, still more often than not in 3 games has, to me, played well, just not putting it all together. But, there are signs that the defense could be pretty good. The most optimistic approach, the Titans at 0-3, could they win the next 2 games? Absolutely.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, you move forward from there. You cut out a pretty big chunk of the negativity that is just naturally going to come with an 0-3 start, and you can be in some level of a playoff race later in the season. It's not impossible. The problem is you got Buffalo and Detroit back-to-back on the road. You got to be real optimistic to find a win in either of those games.
Well, beyond the obvious of the win and loss, the optimistic approach would be that you're 3 games into a new tenure with Brian Callahan, and there's a lot that they still haven't figured out yet, including the offensive line, and that the best way to kind of marry the two of Levis's style of play and Brian Callahan's play calling. The optimistic approach would be that the more games you play together, the better all that's going to get, and you start to look like a competent offense as you move forward here. Now, do I believe that that's going to magically, drastically improve? I don't. I'll have to believe it to see it to believe it at this point. But that's the optimistic approach. It's 3 games into a tenure. There's a lot of new, and it just has not taken place yet. And you're hoping for some growth as the season goes on.
We don't know right now. I don't know that Rand Carthon isn't going to be a great GM. I don't know that Brian Callahan isn't going to be a great coach. I understand where things are now, but this is just the rush to judgment thing. And I understand it's been longer for Carthon, and his first draft is looking rough right now. I get that. But, it's still very early in those tenures. So the optimism is you hope that Amy Adams Strunk made good hires.
Yeah.
She has before. You hope she did here. And then, here's an easy optimism, and maybe the personnel won't let it happen, but the Cleveland Browns were atrocious up front early last season. Then they had injuries, and eventually that line got better and better, and they were fine even with the backups. Conklin was one of the guys who got hurt early, and that's a place where you could probably place a little bit of optimism based on decades of what he's done as an offensive line coach. But I love, again, I don't know what these guys, they also could be terrible. Rand could be a terrible GM. Brian Callahan could be a terrible head coach. The idea that Bill Callahan is a fraud, there's a great example of an overreaction to 3 games.
Yes.
I think decades of evidence might matter.
I would assume
even last year is a great example of it, but call me crazy.
Again, like you said, I think the jury's still out both on Carthon and Callahan. We talked earlier in the show about when do you start having some takeaways from Callahan in terms of things that you learn about him. is there enough of a body of work yet for me to get a great idea of how good or not good of a play caller he is right now? No, there's not at the moment. Is there enough of a body of work for me to get a good idea of whether or not he's equipped to be an NFL head coach and a good NFL head coach? No. Like, there's still a lot left to find out on that front. But, like, part of that is like what they're going through now, right? You're 0-3. The vibes are beyond negative at this point. You got a fan base that's incredibly frustrated. You got a quarterback that's in the crosshairs with a lot of the fan base right now. Like, how do you handle all that? That's part of it, right? How do you handle all that if you're Brian Callahan? And can you get your team to work through it and get to a place where they're more prepared when Sunday or Monday rolls around to go out and win? Like, that's part of the evaluation of the head coach is, can you steer the ship when things aren't going well to begin to kick things off here?
Yeah. Can you not mute when you need to talk? Just little things, the details, the fundamentals.
Details. Yeah.
No, it's a heck of an early test for Brian Callahan. And it is why I saw, and I didn't totally catch all the connections, but Pat McAfee was like, yeah, the Zach Taylor, obviously Callahan 0-3, Zach Taylor's 0-3, and he said Jacksonville too. Do you know the connection there?
I don't. I'd have to look a little bit further into it.
I mean, it's the most
I've not memorized the Jacksonville coaching staff,
but just here, Cincinnati and the Titans.
It's not great. Man. Not a great start.
And that is a Bengals thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess some people look at it like it's a Burrow thing, but the Bengals just have these slow starts and then they recover. So maybe that'll happen here.
So
maybe Brian Callahan follows the blueprint.
He's like the anti-Wisenhunt. Like Wisenhunt, you give Wisenhunt 6 months to prepare for game one. And what'd they win? Like one more game in addition to that in total through his entire
3.
tenure?
I mean, and seriously.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's right, because Malarkey won at least 1 or 2, right? After his interim. So, yeah.
One other game. They may have won like one other game total with Ken Wisenhunt. So, at least you got that going for you. If you're the anti-Wisenhunt and it gets better as the season goes along, I would take that over being like a week 1 juggernaut.
And by the way, Wisenhunt was supposed to be the QB whisperer.
Yeah,
offensive guy too. Sometimes they don't work out.
Sometimes they don't.
Let's see what happens.
Did I see the other day he got a job in like the UFL or something?
Is that right?
I think I saw that.
So is Jeff Fisher's his boss?
I don't know.
Is he the commish still?
No, he was the AFL, wasn't he?
Oh God, really?
I think so. I don't know. We'll have to ask him.
I'm so confused now. There's so many FLs.
That does it for us
including
today on
VFLs.
the program. Jason Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.